Last week I posted a video talking about the physical challenges that I have faced in my career as a tree planter, things that kind of just bother everybody, like the bugs, the weather, the land, trying to move through the land, and that kind of stuff. But the thing with these challenges is that they all kind of have their own strategy to make them a little bit easier. You know, these physical challenges can all kind of be countered with the right self-care treatment and the right equipment, but that's not what I'm going to talk about today. The biggest struggle for me in my 5 years planting every single season, it's not the physical stuff. I've gotten pretty used to it. What I have the most trouble dealing with is the mental challenge that tree planting brings. These are more subtle challenges that I think everybody experiences, but nobody really talks about. You know, it's a lot easier to talk about the hundreds of bugs flying around you versus the discouragement you feel when, as a rookie, you're seeing other rookies progress a little bit quicker than you. So in this video, I thought I would just go over a lot of the mental challenges that I have faced. I made a list. I got 8. There's 8 challenges. Some of them are a little bit more in depth than others, but I'm going to go through the 8 mental challenges that I have always faced and seen others face. During a season of tree planting. Starting with the smaller ones, the first one is you are going to feel homesick. Not everybody's going to experience this, but I would say majority of them will. You no longer have those easy comforts that you were so used to having back home. Very quickly, you're going to miss just sleeping in a bed, cozy under some blankets. You're going to miss how easy it is to just turn on Netflix, go to the bathroom on a toilet, actually have a shower, having storage for all of your things. Every day that passes, especially during your first month and a half in the bush, every day you're just going to slowly miss everything that you had back at home. The second one, and this kind of goes right hand in hand with being homesick, is that you're just gonna miss everybody outside of the bush. You know, you're used to hanging out with your friends on the weekends, you're used to getting home from work or school and seeing your parents if you're still living at home. You're used to going out with your partner during the week, going out for dinner, that kind of stuff. One of my biggest struggles in my rookie season was not seeing my siblings. That was tough. You know, outside of the bush, whenever I have a really shitty day, kind of just talking to my siblings or hanging out with my siblings has always made me feel a little bit better. But when you're out in the bush where every day is a shitty day, you know, every day is a struggle, and you don't have internet or service to keep in contact with anybody outside of the bush, it can be really tough if you're always sort of leaned on other people to help you feel better because you do not have any way to keep in contact with them. And that's the third one. You basically have no connection. You have no service or internet outside of the bush probably 95% of the time. You know, rarely will you have access to Wi-Fi at camp. I don't think a lot of companies have Wi-Fi. Some do, but if they do, it's really only meant for the management staff. It's not going to be publicly shared with everybody. So you no longer have the ease of just scrolling on Instagram or going and watching something on Netflix unless it's downloaded, or just easily sending off a message to anybody. You don't have access to any of that stuff anymore. But those 3 are the simple ones. You know, being homesick, missing people back at home, having no internet or service. These are things that some people will experience. Others might actually kind of thrive in that environment, being away from home, not having your phone all the time to scroll on. This is probably something that isn't a challenge for other people, but pretty freeing for a lot of others. So the ones I'm going to talk to you about now, the next 5, these are ones that in my experience are a little bit more intense, a little bit tougher, and a little bit more of a challenge to kind of get over. The fourth one, it's that the learning curve of figuring out how to be a good tree planter is a lot harder than a lot of people are expecting. You know, before the season even starts, a lot of rookies set a goal, and in my experience and a lot of people that I've talked to, that goal is usually around 2,000 trees a day. No one's really expecting to show up and plant those trees. You know, on your first day, you're excited, you get the training, you go out, you bag up. By the end of the day, you're tops planting 300 to 600 trees, and it took you most of the day. So you enter the season with a goal, and nowhere near that goal do you get on your first day, which is fine. No one's expecting to do that. The next day, same thing. It's just as hard. The day after that, it's just as hard. And then that's when the discouragement starts to kick in a little bit. You know, the thought starts to creep into the back of your head that you are busting your ass off all hours of the day, taking minimal breaks, and you're barely planting 1,000 trees, not even half of what you want your goal to be. And you can't imagine yourself moving any quicker. You can't imagine yourself being any more efficient. You can't see any more shortcuts getting you from where you are to where that you want to be. You know, you feel like you're moving as fast as you possibly can, and yet you're still nowhere near your goal. You just start to doubt if this is something that you're ever actually going to get good at, and this is something that everybody experiences, especially myself. You know, there is a lot of skill involved in being a really good tree planter, and you start to just think that maybe that's a skill that you will not be able to develop. You know, it's your second second shift and maybe you're hitting 1,200 to 1,500 trees, you're kind of slowly, maybe without realizing it at first, starting to give up a little bit. And then it's made worse with the next challenge I'm going to talk about, the fifth one. This is the one that I struggled with the most. It is the competitive side of tree planting. You know, people progress at different speeds as a rookie. So where you're still busting ass planting 1,500, you see other rookies start hitting their first 2Ks. They start averaging that. And then as other rookies start planting a lot more, they start getting a little bit more competitive. So they'll come back and the first thing they'll do is they'll go around, they'll ask everybody, what did you plant? What did you hit? What was your number? And that's a really hard question to answer when you are not where you want to be, because maybe you feel a little bit of embarrassment towards your number. You don't have that pride that you clearly see them having, so you kind of struggle when people are asking you those questions. But let's say you get over that. Let's say, you know, you struggle with the learning curve a little bit. You're watching other people progress quicker than you, but it doesn't fucking matter to you. You're locked in. You're going to figure this out however long it takes, and you just head down and you work. Something you are undoubtedly going to face, I face this probably more times than I don't, is that you wake up and you simply do not want to fucking go plant trees. You just want a day off, you're low energy, who knows. But for whatever reason it is, you wake up and you do not want to go planting. The thing with tree planting is that it's piecework. So if you do not plant any trees, you do not make any money. And aside from just not being in the mood to plant, there's really two things that are more so physical challenges, but that just fuck you up mentally. And I talked about these last week. I'm going to talk about them quickly right now. Being in tough land is incredibly discouraging because even if you're mentally locked in, sometimes you're just put in land that you cannot move through quickly. So you're not going to plant a lot of trees. Like you might have a goal to go out and hit 4,000 trees. You've got it all figured out in your head. You manage the time throughout the day and you're just locked in. But the fucking rock cat, shitty cliff, cedar swamp that you're in, it's next to impossible to plant trees that are going to survive at a speed quick enough for you to hit the number that you want to hit. Yes, it's a physical challenge being in shitty land, but I've always been affected more so by the mental side of it than anything. The next one's the weather. I talked about this last week as well. It's pretty fucking lame to wake up in the morning and to hear rain hitting your tents and know that you've just got to go spend the entire day planting trees. Or just it's cold. Like it's I've planted quite a few days where there's hail or there's snow. So you just would much rather be anywhere else other than outside in the middle of nowhere by yourself with the bags on, freezing, trying to plant trees for 9 to 10 hours a day. It really sucks doing something that isn't overly enjoyable to begin with, like tree planting, but it's so much worse when there's just all these conditions that are working against you to make it even more shitty. Now, this leads me to the last challenge, and this is the one that I don't think I'll ever shake. I've gotten pretty good at dealing with everything else, but this is one that I think is just ingrained in me as a tree planter, and it's when something fucks up my time management. This could just be a me thing, but in my opinion, time management is the key that is going to bring you from a good planter to a great planter. Everything that you do in the bush, not just the hours of the workday, everything that you do out there should be a part of helping you plant more trees. The amount of sleep that you're getting, the breaks that you're taking during the day of work, how you spend your days off, how you spend your nights after work, how you spend your morning when you wake up and get ready to go to work. All of these things are a part of time management. And the way that you manage your time is what is going to make you a high baller. Whenever I fuck up my time management, it just completely knocks me down a few steps. Like let's say I stay up an hour or two later than I wanted to go to bed. Or maybe I didn't pack my bag the night before and now I have to do it in the morning before I even go and get breakfast. But the worst is when I actually set goals in the morning and I create what I call a schedule and something gets in the way of me not hitting that goal. So let's say it takes me 45 minutes to plant a box and I'm doing an 8-hour workday with very minimal breaks. By the end of the day, I'll plant roughly 10 boxes. If they're 450 trees per box, by the end of the day, I'm gonna plant 4,500. So I know in the morning, if I can just go by that schedule, 45-minute boxes with no breaks, just bagging up and going back in, and I can maintain that for 8 hours, I'm gonna finish with 4,500 trees. So all I need to do is manage my time throughout the day to make sure that I am fitting that schedule, planting the boxes in that time, not taking a break, and I hit my goal by the end of the day. This is my number one strategy to being a planter. But when something fucks up my schedule, my mental just explodes. And people have seen that happen. Maybe I plant a slower box. Instead of 45 minutes, it takes me 55 minutes to plant it, and now I'm behind schedule. Maybe our crew wraps the block early in the day, and instead of taking the rest of the day off, we drive to the new block, which is like an hour away, and start there. So we took an hour-long break. Or maybe I finish my piece, and it takes me 30 minutes to get brought to a new one and start there. Every situation, I'm just discouraged because I'm losing time. I now have to readjust my schedule middle of the day, which is only going to make it so that I plant a lower amount of trees than I actually can. Because yes, I could just push myself to plant 35-minute, 40-minute boxes, but I know that I can't do that in majority of the land that I'm in and maintain a good quality of trees. So I just have to write off off a box maybe depending on how much time was wasted, and now I am planting less than the goal I set for myself. So time management, that is the number one mental struggle that I have. You know, it's the physical stuff that is really going to annoy you, but it's the mental things that are actually going to be what slow you down and have you question whether or not you made the right decision on actually coming out here to the bush. But once I actually get out there, I'm 1.5 months away from having the bags on and planting trees, and I'm going to be doing that for about 7 months straight. Once I get out there, I'm actually going to show you firsthand, like first person experience on what I do with time management and how I counter all these physical challenges and all these mental hurdles, and every piece of advice that I have that can help you fast track the learning curve so you're not experience that discouragement and that self-doubt that majority of planters feel. I want to help you get to where you want to be as quickly as possible. Well, until then, we're all stuck with me just sitting in this room talking about trees. Anyways, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to show some support. Love you guys. Appreciate your support. Look out for my video next Friday, and until then, 2 steps tree, baby. Don't forget.